Welcome all to this episode on The Thrill Pill. We will be going over diabetes and splitting this topic into a two-part series. Diabetes mellitus can be characterized as a metabolic disorder stemming from insulin resistance and/or insufficient insulin secretion. This in turn can lead to high amounts of sugar in the blood. Having too much sugar in the blood can lead to damage in the body over a period of time, including affecting a wide range of organs and leading to a low quality of life. One more thing I'd like to highlight about having too much sugar in the blood are the 3 P's. The first P will be polyphagia, meaning eating too much or having too much hunger. The second P is polydipsia, meaning increased thirst or fluid intake. The last P will be polyuria, meaning urinating too frequently. These are often the signs of somebody that has too much blood sugar. This episode will cover over type 1 diabetes only. Before I jump into too much detail, I first want to introduce you to 2 key players. The first hormone that plays a big role is insulin, which is produced by the pancreas. Let's take a look at why insulin is such an important player in the fed state. The first action I want to cover is its role on the liver and glucose production. When the body is fed, insulin signals the liver to slow glucose production. This leads to less glucose being produced and released into the bloodstream. The second action I want to cover is insulin promotion of glucose uptake by the peripheral tissues. During insulin release, glucose exits the bloodstream and is taken into the peripheral tissues. This also leads to glucose lowering in the bloodstream. The second key player is glucagon. Glucagon is also a hormone produced by the pancreas. In the fasting state, glucagon plays the opposite role of insulin. During fasting, glucagon is released and promotes the liver to produce glucose and therefore increasing the amount of glucose in the blood. Glucagon and insulin both regulate each other in such a way that when glucagon is released, it suppresses insulin secretion, and vice versa. When insulin is released, it suppresses glucagon secretion. As noted earlier, both glucagon and insulin are produced by the pancreas. Even though both are produced by the same organ, they are secreted at different parts of the organ, and this is important to note. During type 1 diabetes, the body undergoes an autoimmune attack on the pancreas and damages the area where insulin is secreted. Due to this, insulin production falls over time, and eventually the body cannot produce enough insulin for the body, leading to uncontrolled sugar levels in the blood.
Pika pika!
So the question is, how do we counter this? How do we fix this problem of low insulin? That's right, we give insulin. The American Diabetes Association recommends giving 0.4 to 1 units per kilogram per day. of your total daily dose of insulin. Furthermore, you can consider using 0.5 units per kilogram per day as a starting point when taking into account your total daily dose. Once you have taken everything into account and calculated your total daily dose, half of this will become your short-acting insulin, like Humalog, like Novolog, or Apidra. The other half of your total daily dose will be given as your long-acting insulin, like Lantus, or Levemir, or insulin degludec. One important thing to note is that you'll be further dividing your short-acting insulin units by the number of meals they eat. This is important to note, as giving too much insulin without enough carbohydrates can lead to hypoglycemia. So let's assume a patient ate 3 meals. You would divide your total units for short-acting insulin by 3. So taking into account the problem in front of us, we would recommend the patient to take 12 units of long-acting insulin daily and 4 units of short-acting insulin before every meal. So what we just did was basal bolus dosing. Basal meaning your long-acting insulin, and bolus meaning your short-acting insulin. Alright, now that we've started treating the patient, how do we monitor their progress? How do we know if they're getting better? The American Diabetes Association has recommended that non-pregnant patients have an A1C goal of less than 7%. Hemoglobin A1C can help us monitor blood glucose over a period of time. So that takes care of one way of monitoring a patient. Another way to monitor their glucose levels is having a patient check on their own blood sugar levels using a glucometer. If the patient checks their blood glucose levels prior to meals, the hope is that the sugar level is between 80 to 130 milligrams per deciliter. If the patient checks their blood glucose levels after meals, the hope is that it is less than 180 milligrams per deciliter. Ensuring the patient checks his or her levels is extremely important. Let's now assume a patient has a reading less than 70 milligrams per deciliter. We can call this state hypoglycemia, where a patient has low blood sugar. Hypoglycemia has a lot of symptoms associated with it, including shakiness, sweating, hunger, and many others. If a patient becomes hypoglycemic, we want to ensure they are treated immediately. And we use something called the Rule of 15 to do this. The patient should ingest 15 grams of carbs, like glucose tabs, glucose gel, half a cup of orange juice or non-diet soda, tablespoon of honey, or hard candy. Once a patient consumes this, wait 15 minutes and then have them check their blood glucose. Have them repeat this process until they are above 70 milligrams per deciliter. Once they're above 70 milligrams per deciliter, have them consume a meal to ensure they maintain their blood glucose above 70. Wait a minute. This assumes the patient can consume the carbs. If a patient's unable to consume it, or just can't consume the 15 grams of carbs, it is then that we invite glucagon back to the stage and administer glucagon. Someone close to the patient should be instructed on how to use the glucagon.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them them is my cause. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide. These Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. It's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Pokemon, oh, you're my best friend in a world we must defend. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em. Our hearts so true, our courage will pull us through. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Yeah. Every challenge